Hey everyone, just wanted to come on here real quick and talk about the situation with Mighty Mouse, Pino, and Milk74. I had noticed a few things that just didn't feel right with that whole situation, and I want to speak on them. But before I do that, let me break down a really brief summary of events that have happened in the last few weeks. Let me start by introducing the three creators I will be discussing. First, we have Milk74. He's a YouTuber from Los Angeles. He mostly does reaction videos. More recently, he had an interview with Adam22 at No Jumper. Then we have Pino. He's a YouTuber from Florida. He mostly does interviews on his channel, like interviews with guys talking about their experiences in prison and whatnot. He also, just recently, this last week, had an interview with Adam22 at No Jumper. Then we have Mighty Mouse, a YouTuber out of Virginia who has a fighting channel. He also has a movement called Guns Down, Gloves Up. He used to be involved with Street Beefs, which was a channel that would help coordinate fights between people that were arguing on the internet. Now that he is no longer with Street Beefs, he's pretty much doing the exact same thing on his channel. Mighty Mouse also books these fights out of state, and in his travels, he'll do these in his car driving vlogs where he'll drive by housing projects and through different neighborhoods and talk about the history of those neighborhoods. He also has some really disturbing convictions on his paperwork, which we will discuss later in the video. Anyhow, so Milk74 and Pino were having a back and forth on the internet. They have a history of doing this. Then Pino put out a video letting Milk know that he will be in Los Angeles April 29, 2021. Mighty Mouse also put out a community tab tagging Milk in it, saying that he would be in the city of Manhattan Beach in Los Angeles, California on May 1st, 2021. He put his exact location on that post, and we'll be talking about that location later in the video. So April 29th comes, Pino lands in LA. Meanwhile, Milk is live streaming on and off throughout the day on Instagram and YouTube and different locations in Los Angeles. At some point in the afternoon, they started texting each other back and forth. I'm going to read through the text messages for you guys. The first text message was sent at 11:39 a.m. Pino starts off with, "At the gym by your house, you coming?" Then Milk responds with, "Where you at?" Then Pino responds with, "Laughing out loud, I just told you, 5 to 6 gym is reserved for you and me, bare knuckle, I'm in your city, no excuse." Then Milk responds with, "We ain't doing no gym." The next set of text messages were between 4:24 p.m. and 4:36 p.m. At 4:24 p.m., Pino starts off with, 649 East Arrow Highway, Azusa, Cali, show up, stop being a bitch, put on for the set. Then Milk responds with, "You're a bitch on Hoover, you need a gym and police, laughing out loud, you a pussy." Then Pino comes back with, "No police, where you want me to go?" Then Milk says, "Azusa, N-word, I'm from LA." Then at 4:31, I think Pino asks him, where he wants him to go again, and then he puts question mark, question mark, question mark, and then Milk responds with 107th in Vermont. Then Pino comes back with, "Where we fight at? Not in the middle of the street, dumbass," laughing emoji. Then Milk comes back with, "You a pussy," laughing emoji. "You come to California but hide in Azusa," laughing emoji. Then Pino responds with, "Let's go in your homie's yard." Then Milk comes back with, "You boo-boo," and then Pino responds with, "Give me an actual addy." Then Milk responds with, "You're a pussy. The fuck you need an address for? The police?" Then Pino responds with, "That ain't even your hood. Big homie telling me you can't do that. Laughing my ass off. I'ma be there. Don't hide." Then Milk says, "You don't have a big homie, Buster. You're not from Hoover." Then Pino responds with, "I'ma be there. None of the big homies, not you." Laughing emoji, laughing emoji, laughing emoji. Bruh, you gonna fight or what? So this is all going on, all this text messaging back and forth stuff, while Milk is live streaming at different locations in Los Angeles, and Pino is off making videos with Mighty Mouse. So obviously by now we know these guys didn't fight. They're still going back and forth on social media, however, and Pino says that he's going to be in Los Angeles 3 more times this year. I guess we'll see what comes of that. I wanted to talk about a few things that were said and done and some inconsistencies that happened while Mighty Mouse and Pino were in Los Angeles. But before I get into that, I wanted to give a little backstory, a little bit of history. All of this started kind of last year. Pino and Milk74 would go back and forth because Pino was friends with 2 other YouTube creators that go by the name of K-Frog and 1090 Jake at End of Sentence. Pino, 1090 Jake, and K-Frog were all friends. They all had something in common. They had all done time in Florida prisons. They had all done interviews with 23andMe, and they all had their own YouTube channels and were doing really well. Milk had called all 3 of them out at one point because Milk pretty much gives no fucks and he'll just call about anybody out. Nothing ever came of it except for K-Frog pretending to send goons out to Milk's house at one point, and then at another point he actually lied and pretended that he came out to Los Angeles. It was obviously fake. I made a couple videos about it. I'll put links in the description. However, K-Frog stands by it that he was in Los Angeles, and running up on Milk when nothing happened. And I wanted to add that Milk did go outside of his house and wait, and wait, and wait, and wait, and K-Frog never showed up. So then fast forward to April 1st, 2020, and I remember it was April 1st because I thought it was an April Fool's joke. 1090 Jake and K-Frog both put out videos calling out Pino for his paperwork. Pino has paperwork that he implicated his co-defendant, which he addressed on his No Jumper interview, and I also made, I think, 2 videos about it, which I will link in the description. Anyhow, about a day or two after 1090 Jake and K-Frog call out Pino for his paperwork, Pino turns around and calls out K-Frog on his paperwork. Because somewhere in K-Frog's paperwork, it states that he called the police on somebody. K-Frog denied it, said it was a statement that his mom made in court and that she lied for him, blah, 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 blah. The details regarding that situation are in the video that I did covering the whole Pino, K-Frog, 1090 Jake situation. Anyhow, at that point, 1090 Jake pulled back from both Pino and K-Frog, and none of them were friends. Then about a month later, in May 2020, Pino and K-Frog started going at it online. And then, since they lived close to each other, they were rolling around each other's neighborhoods, where you at? I'm over here. Well, they never found each other and they never fought. Then, shortly after that, 1090 Jake and Pino started getting into it, and Pino said he was on his way up to Jake's house. Pino arrived in Boston, 1090 Jake dropped his location, Pino showed up, Jake was outside, they fought. While fighting, Pino's friends were in the car recording the whole thing. Pino never showed the video, he only showed screenshots of it on his Instagram and I think in his community tab on YouTube. Until a year later in current time, he talked about the fight and how he recorded it and how he never released it on the No Jumper interview. Then finally the other day, he finally released it and everybody saw it. As far as K-Frog goes, a year later in current time, about 2 months ago, Pino reached out to Mighty Mouse so he could call out K-Frog. K-Frog naturally declined because we all know he doesn't want to fight anybody. I just wanted to give a little bit of backstory for those that didn't know. Anyhow, enough of the backstory and on to the current stuff. First, I want to talk about the fake pull-up that Mighty Mouse did. But first, let me play you a clip.
On YouTube, go subscribe, guys. Listen, man, we down here in Hoover neighborhood. You can see right here, we're on Figueroa Street in Florence. Right here in front of us, that's Florence. I'm about ready to hit this dude's block up, man, to see if anybody knows this clown they call Milk. Because from what I've heard from a bunch of people on social media, that this dude is non-existent, you know what I'm saying, except on social media. Go down here and talk to some of these dudes, man, see who I can see. What is this, 73rd? So it's got to be his next street up, right? Ain't this 74 right here, right? 74 right here. Right, wasn't that 74?
Yep, that was it.
Circle back. I can't see the damn signs. I guess when I make a right, that'll put me right back on 74, right? Let's see if I see anybody walking and shit. There's Vermont Avenue, 76. Gotta be down. It's gotta be 74 right down here. There it is, guys. 74th Street right there. Y'all can see it. Well, I see somebody back here home. How did this do right here? Put the camera down. Okay, put the camera down. Put the camera down. Hey, yo. Hey, homies. Yo. Homies.
Yo, what's good?
Hey, you know this dude, what do they call him? They call him Milk 74 or some shit like that. He's supposed to be out here from this area.
Yeah, I seen that. I only seen that on social media, YouTube, Instagram.
What about you, homie? You say you don't. I mean, I'm okay. So let me ask y'all this. He fucking so only on social media. Y'all don't. So he ain't never out here on this block or anything like that.
Nah, we be posting on the blog all day. We ain't see no Milk out here.
To watch that clip in the full, I'm going to link a video in the description where this guy pretty much goes through the whole video and breaks down every little part of it to... It's just so obvious. I don't know who he thinks he was fooling with that video. If anything, Mighty Mouse made his situation so much worse by doing that. Like, he complicated his situation so much more. If I was a supporter of his, I would have been really insulted. Now I want to talk a little bit about how both Pino and Mighty Mouse thought it was okay to call Milk's girlfriend a gorilla. This is not the first time she's been called racist, vile shit. Mika is Milk's girlfriend. Mika never gets in the drama. She's a really, really nice lady. I'm going to link her channel in the description. She does story times and, you know, cook with me videos and just different stuff. She's a really nice lady, it seems like. And she never says anything mean about anybody. I get that they're trying to trigger each other and hurt each other's feelings and get each other mad. But that was so unnecessary, and it's not the first time that it's happened. I made a video about this before because K-Frog called her a gorilla. Like, where do these guys get off saying this about her? It's fucking disgusting. I mean, they could have said almost anything else to piss him off besides something like that. And I'm glad people are speaking out against it this time, because when K-Frog did it almost a year ago, nobody said shit. And when I made a video about it, a lot of his mindless followers said that I was making a big deal out of nothing. Now let's talk about Mighty Mouse wanting to meet up with Milk 74 in Manhattan Beach. What I think is funny about that, for one thing, it's not a gym, it's a park. Also, what I don't understand is why Pino and Mighty Mouse had such an issue with the location that Milk chose in downtown LA, or the other location he chose at 107th in Vermont. They were complaining, saying that there would be a lot of cops in downtown LA, or there would be a lot of cops on 107th in Vermont if they got in a fight there. But they chose a location in Manhattan Beach, California, and didn't think there was going to be cops there. I'm very familiar with that park. It's about 25 minutes from my house. I used to take my kids there sometimes when they were little to feed the ducks. And I can almost guarantee you that the cops would have showed up before that fight even cracked off. I know that Mighty Mouse ended up having a fight there. However, the circumstances and the politics behind this fight were a lot different, and they knew that. There were a few other things about this whole situation that were strange to me. I felt like either Mighty Mouse and Pino were manipulating their subscribers that were not familiar with the Los Angeles area, or they kind of don't have a concept of how much traffic we have here. Like how Pino keeps saying that Azusa is 10 minutes from Milk's house in downtown LA. That's not true. However, when Milk was at the Staples Center and Mighty Mouse and Pino were at Imperial Courts, they were about 15 to 20 minutes away from each other. All they had to do was hop on the 105 to the 110, they would have been there in no time. Or if they would have picked the first location at 107th Street in Vermont, they would have been there in 9 minutes. While we're on the subject of 107th in Vermont, let me play you a clip.
It was a W. If you would have pulled up to that gym, bro, it was a W for you, bro. All you had to do was pull up at that gym, bro. It was a W for you. Even if I knocked your teeth out, they would have still respected you, bro. Now nobody respect you, and you'll never come to Florida a day in your life and let your nuts hang how I did, bitch. You'll never do that. Ever. Tell them how I asked you to come to the backyard on 107. Tell them that. 107th and Fig, and you ain't want to show up. I got the screenshots of all that. Tell them that.
None of the screenshots that Pino put out said that. The screenshots that were shown showed that Milk suggested that they go down the street to 107th in Vermont, and Pino didn't want to, and then Pino asked if he had a friend that had a backyard they could go to. So if Pino had a backyard set up off of 107th in Figueroa, then why didn't he show the screenshots for that? I don't know, maybe he put out those screenshots and I missed it. Let me know in the comments. Another thing I was wondering, is Mighty Mouse even allowed to go to parks? For real, like that doesn't sound right. I thought that sex offenders weren't allowed to be around parks and schools. Another thing that Pino keeps saying is that Milk called him at 10 o'clock at night. Now, Milk might have called him at 10 o'clock at night, but he also texted him at 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the daytime. And he also was outside, and you knew where he was at about 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. The sun was still up. It wasn't 10 o'clock for sure. Another thing is that they think that going to a gym would be safer and nothing bad would happen. Anything can happen anywhere. Your common sense should tell you that. At the end of the day, I feel like, Milk made everybody aware of his location, and Pino and Mighty Mouse, they were 15 minutes away. They could have rolled up there and got it done, and I feel like they had a whole lot of excuses. I've always liked Milk and Pino. I've done videos on both of them. As far as Milk goes, the video I did about him, I think I was a little hard on him, but I've always liked him. But I'm glad that he's made a lot of positive changes on his channel. He's doing really well, and that's good. Pino, I'm just really disappointed that he supports Mighty Mouse. That's somebody that I've never supported. That brings me to my next subject. Next video I'm going to be doing is covering this whole thing where all these creators are calling out Mighty Mouse for his paperwork. Anyhow, I think I'm going to wrap up the video right here. Stay tuned for my Mighty Mouse video coming up, and then also stay tuned because Milk and Pino are still going at it online, and Pino announced that he'll be in LA 3 more times this year, so we'll see what comes of that. Anyways, hope you guys like the video. Love y'all.